Now that you understand a little bit about quantifying probabilities and categorizing them according to possibilities, certainty, and impossibility, we can discuss data. Exploring data will lead us into statistics, which is the study of data. The main parts of statistics are 1. Collection of data, 2. Organization of data, 3. Analysis or interpretation of data, and 4. Presentation of data. Probability is a type of interpretation of data to find out the possibility of a certain event happening. Data is the information that probabilities are based on. We need to count events or results in order to form conclusions about probabilities. For example, how many 16-year-old drivers receive citations or tickets annually in one city? We would need to get the total number of 16-year-old drivers in one city for a specific year, then find the number from that group who receive citations. The number of drivers who receive citations can be converted into a percentage. If we find these numbers for multiple years, for example 5 years from 2010 to 2015, this information can be used to form a probability. Data is used to form probabilities and also to describe and explain variables for the purpose of analysis used in research. Variables are objects that are used as samples in an experiment for analysis and research. Using the teen driving example again, a variable is the number of 16-year-olds who receive citations in one city in the year 2015. You can also think of a variable as a category or collection. How many 16-year-olds receive citations for speeding, going through stop signs or signals, or driving without a seatbelt? Each one of these violations is a variable or category. In probability, distribution is the value or variable between 0 and 1 that describes the chance of something happening. That value or variable can be a single category or collection of data that can be used for research. There are 3 types of data distributions: one variable distribution, 2 variable distribution, and multivariable distribution. One variable distribution is also called univariate analysis. Uni means one and variate means variable. This type of distribution uses only one variable or type of data and is used for descriptions. For example, how many females are in the senior class of one high school? We can use one variable to help us describe the senior class in terms of gender. Univariate analysis does not deal with causes or relationships. Bivariate data does that, and is covered in another video. We can use one category to find meaningful patterns in data or information for the purpose of research. Here's an example of using univariate data to find a pattern that describes the senior class in more detail. What are the final grades per student? Out of a class of 11 students, here are the final scores. Analysis or interpretation of data. Univariate analysis means studying cases of one variable at a time. There are 3 major characteristics of a single variable that we tend to look at: the distribution, the central tendency, and the dispersion. In most situations, we would describe all 3 of these characteristics for each of the variables in our study. The distribution. The distribution is a summary of the frequency of individual values or ranges of values for a variable. This is commonly called frequency distribution and represented with bar charts or histograms. The simplest distribution would list every value of a variable and the number of persons who had each value. For instance, we can show the grade scores for one class of students or describe gender by listing the number or percent of male and female students. Central tendency. The central tendency of a distribution is an estimate of the center of a distribution of values. There are 3 major types of estimates of central tendency: mean, median, and mode. Univariate data can be used to show central information like mean, the average, mode, the number used most often, and median, or middle values. Here are examples of mean, mode, and median using the scores above. The mean, or average, is 78.90. The mode, the number used most often, is 63. The median, or the middle, is 78. Find the mean by adding all the scores together and then dividing by the number of students. Find the mode by looking for the number that is used most often. In this case, it is 63. Find the median by looking for the number in the middle of the range. This is easy if the number of students are uneven. If the number of students were even, add 2 of the center numbers and then divide by 2. The dispersion. Dispersion refers to the spread of the values around the central tendency. There are 2 common measures of dispersion, the range and the standard deviation. The range is simply the highest value minus the lowest value. In our student score distribution example, the highest value is 100 and the lowest value is 55. So the range is 100 minus 55, which equals 45. Standard deviation will be covered in another lesson. Since these examples use only one category, what do you think would be the best way to analyze or evaluate your data? There are a couple of strategies we can use to interpret the class scores data. We can use range with a timeline. We have been using timelines in our probability lessons, so a timeline is a very handy tool to help us understand data information. Here you can see the lowest and highest grades along with trends. This helps us to examine the spread of data. Another handy tool is quartiles or quarters. If you remember the previous videos about impossibility, possible, and certain, you saw how the timeline was divided in 2. Quartiles are divided using 3 lines that separate the spread into 4 equal sections. It is helpful to know about the median or middle division. We could look at them in quartiles or quarters. Presentation of data. What about display? What do you think is the best way to share this information? Yes, we could just write the numbers and labels, but what if we want to show the information visually or graphically because we want to share the information in a way that everyone can understand instantly, like in an Instagram? There are 3 ways to plot the data: bar graphs, pie charts, and histograms. Using our student grades example, here is a bar chart of the scores. In this bar chart, the individual student numbers represent a categorical type, while the scores represent a numerical type. The other types of charts will be covered in a separate video.